5:35 on a Monday night. Tonight, the life and the draw behind backcountry freestyle snowboarding, riding natural terrain, getting into places that helicopters can't, without ropes, without pickaxes, and then, of course, riding the line that Mother Nature has drawn for you with a trick or two along the drop. We are with Vermonter Jake Blauvelt, who has traveled the world from Indonesia and Japan to Chile, the Arctic Circle, and everywhere in between. He's been featured in films like That's It, That's All, The Art of Flight. His solo project, a docuseries called Naturally, is on Vudu, Amazon Prime, Google Play Movies and TV, and is all over YouTube. Please welcome world-renowned snowboarder and Vermonter Jake Blauvelt. Welcome home, my man.
Yeah, thank you, JD. Thanks for having me, man.
This is so incredible that you're here. We've been talking about this for literally a year now.
Yeah, I'm glad the stars finally aligned, man.
Where have you been? You've been all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, how do we recap the last couple of months? I mean, you've...
Yeah, I guess, man, I've been a couple places, but mainly I just been changing diapers. It feels like.
I know. You're a dad of two.
Yeah.
And the youngest is how old?
The youngest is 4 months. Yeah.
4 months old.
Yeah.
And the oldest?
Oldest just had her second birthday on the 22nd last week. So we had 2 under 2. I can't say that anymore, but 2 under 2 for a while. And yeah, it's pretty hectic. It's
Brother,
awesome.
you got your hands
no doubt, man.
full.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Isn't
It's
it
great.
incredible?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Hang on tight.
Yeah,
because it's fast.
It does. It happens fast.
I have been watching your stuff on Echo Boom Sports and Friday Films. Unreal.
Thanks, man.
I don't even know where to begin. Your sponsors, you've got Adidas, the North Face, Darn Tough Socks, Ride Snowboards, and Smith Optics.
Yes, correct. Yeah, those are the 5 main ones. Yeah,
that's impressive.
Help. Yeah, thanks.
Impressive as hell, brother.
I feel very honored to be on the roster with all those brands. They help get me out there and pay the bills, and they just have great product, and I stand behind all their product. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's get right to the thick of it. This weekend, Saturday.
Yes.
That's coming up real soon. Today's Monday. Saturday, you're going to be at Bolton Valley.
Yeah, this Saturday, February 1st, we'll be at Bolton Valley for an event. This is the first annual event of Blauvelt's Banks, we're calling it. So it's a bank slalom, which is, those are all kind of the rage these days within the snowboard community. And it's a bank slalom race to get the whole Vermont and East Coast snowboard scene. We've even got some people coming over from overseas in the West Coast, but mainly to get the snowboard community together and raise money for a good cause, which this year we're raising money for Protect Our Winters.
POW.
POW, yeah, POW.
And so what are they about?
They're just all about advocating to help combat climate change, you know, and basically just taking care of Mother Earth. Which is like, how could you argue with that, you know?
And listen, if there's anyone who's seen plenty of Mother Earth, it's you. I mean, you started out as a kid learning how to snowboard in the after-school program at Waterbury.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Wow. It's cool how it's all come full circle, and I'm back at Bolton Valley these days.
That's where you're going to the after-school program?
Yeah, and that's where I started. Shit, this is really dating myself, but I started, man.
Well, 4th grade.
4th grade. So how old are you in 4th grade? You're like 10 years old. So that was 23 years ago that we were doing that.
What do you remember about that? Was it something that... Do you remember taking lessons? Do you remember getting a board on your feet for the first time?
I do remember taking lessons. Well, I remember the first year for after-school program, I was on downhill skis. I didn't know how to downhill ski. I started off cross-country skiing with my folks. And then I did the downhill skiing. I broke my leg up at the top of Bolton. And that ended my downhill skiing career right off the bat, first year at it. And then I had already been dabbling with skateboarding at that time, and so I wanted to try snowboarding the next year after I healed up. And I can remember hopping on my board that first run at Bolton and just being so pissed that I couldn't do it. You know, it was really difficult. It's harder
of the
than
leg?
skiing to learn. No, not because of the leg. I was all healed up. It's mainly just snowboarding's a little more difficult, I think, on average for people to learn in the beginning, just because it's more balance. Skiing's just a little easier to learn. Not to say that skiing is easier than snowboarding, but to learn, I think it is. So anyway, I was just really frustrated. I thought I could do it right off the bat, but there was definitely a learning curve. But luckily, I had good people showing me the way to do it, and it all worked out.
Yeah. And of course, a good part of that is innate in you. It's got to be. It's gotta be.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm guessing so, man. Yeah. So, you know, I notice, you know, there's so many professionals that watch your stuff that you have out there. But for the folks who, like myself, who are not snowboarders, who don't really know a lot about snowboarding, and it not just the art of snowboarding, but the whole lifestyle that goes with it. There are plenty of terms here that I've just never heard before. You know, you just learned how to. You just a couple of years ago started taking up Spanish, which is smart.
So that
you're traveling all over the world. You want to make sure that you're bilingual, right?
Not too much of a gringo when I go down there.
Exactly. Right.
But you inevitably are. Yeah.
But you have this whole other language with snowboarding that is so interesting to me.
It's true.
So what the hell is a bank slalom?
Yeah, that's a good question. A bank slalom is it's basically, you know, in skiing, I think it'll be easy for people to understand. Like a slalom course in skiing is just on one flat pitch where they carve around the gates that are set up on the course. But with a bank slalom, you put gates up, and then around those gates, you make a big berm. So it's like a wall almost that you can ride and kind of get like almost horizontal, you know, and then you pump into the next berm. And so that's the bank part of the bank slalom. And so it's just a series of linked banks that go through and down the course. And it's just one person on course at a time, and fastest time wins. It's
A to B.
Pretty basic concept, yeah.
So you'll be there signing some autographs, maybe? Or?
Yeah, maybe if anybody wants them, for sure. Yeah, I'll sign them.
But you'll be up there taking a few runs too?
Yeah, I think I'm going to 4-run the course, but I just want to make sure. I'm actually not going to race. I kind of figured you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, whereas like if you win your own race, no one's going to be psyched on you on that. But then if you lose it, it's like it's the same thing. It's almost worse. So
by some little kid.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to stay focused on making sure that we pull the event off and everyone else has a good time. And I'll have a good time as long as everyone else has a good time. And we raise money for POW.
For POW.
Yeah.
So what time does this all start on Saturday?
So it's starting, registration starting from 8 till 10. And then 10 o'clock is first runs. And so we'll have you slip the course. Slipping is basically just going down kind of half speed, checking the course out. And then, first runs will start at about 10 a.m. and go until 4. And then about 5 p.m. on Saturday is when we have awards in the base lodge at Bolton Valley. Yeah.
Isn't this amazing that you started there in 4th grade?
Yeah.
And
it's so
cool. Couple of years later, you got Blauvelt's Banks.
Right,
I mean, that's crazy.
Maybe more than a couple of years, but yeah, for sure. It's all come full circle, and it feels really good to be doing it at Bolton, where it's an independently owned family resort, and it feels really good. And that's where I want to raise my kids on the hill, you know, and that's where I started, and it just feels really good to be at Bolton.
Do you already have the board picked out for your little girl?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, we took her up just last Saturday. It was crazy weather. I'm learning you need to pick your days wisely when you're trying to get the little ones on the boards.
Sure.
And we did not, but she had a blast regardless. And it's more just like a controlled fall, you know. But
yes,
it's cool. She had a blast. And then you go and get French fries and hot cocoa, and it's like,
life's good.
Life's good.
Have you ever dropped off I'm sure you have, dropped off the other side of Bolton and ended up down in Waterbury?
Well, dude, so that's a really good question. So we live on the other side of the mountain from Bolton, and
Yeah.
I stare at that run all the time. And so
Yes.
if you were to drop over the backside, you just go right into the Cotton Brook drainage.
Yeah, the
and
Cotton Brook.
you
Yeah.
can't really get lost. You just go straight, and you're going to hit the reservoir. And I actually go deer hunting back there, too. And so I've
Yeah.
walked around in those woods a bunch, and, like, I know them really well, but I haven't been on my board yet. And I'm hoping to this year, but we just need a little more snow.
It's a
in
sweet
order to-
mountain bike
Right.
loop up
Yeah,
in there
up
too,
in
Cotton Brook.
Cotton Brook, and then on the other side where the dam is, it's like the
Yeah.
Ricker Woods, right?
Yes, yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
You ever been lost? I'm sure you have.
Not East Coast lost, but yeah, we've been definitely. There's a couple times when you're out on the glaciers out west, we snowmobile out, and it's all above tree line. Oftentimes when you're going way out super deep on the glaciers, you have weather come in, and you'll just be socked in the cloud. There's no definition with any trees or anything. And so when we go out, we make sure to take one snowmobile track out.
Yeah.
We're not hot dogging around,
Yes.
so that we can follow that one track back in case weather comes in. Because sometimes when that weather comes in and there's no trees or landmarks to reference,
Yeah.
you just don't know which way is up and down and left and right. And so it's really easy to get lost. So we've had a couple.
What about boarding out of bounds? Never been lost?
Not really. No, nothing to the point where, like,
You've had to stay the night,
no.
like
no.
we read about so often.
Right, yeah.
And they're all from New Jersey, and
Yeah,
Massachusetts, and
exactly.
Connecticut. Come on, let's be
Yeah,
honest.
right. I think just like when you know what can go wrong out there, you kind of make sure that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's people who just, they don't know, and they just go for it, and then they're up shit creek without
Yeah,
a paddle.
big time.
Yeah.
What's up with your training? How do you stay in such great shape? How do you stay so physically fit? I mean, one of the things about you is that you're not always on a snowmobile. You're not always jumping in a helicopter. You're doing a run, or whatever the hell you call
Yeah,
it.
no, that's good.
And then you gotta huff it back up and,
Right.
and do it again if you didn't like your trick.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. You get to go rebait your trick. Yeah. And so you got to run back.
Rebait the
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's like, man, hiking around in waist, chest deep powder is a lot of work. And definitely, like, after I get done a big trip, especially like in Japan, where we do a lot of hiking in
Right.
chest deep snow, super light snow, but still, like, hiking around in chest deep snow, after a trip like that, you're just in shape. You're freaking cut, and you're
Yeah.
feeling good. But I think to answer your question, how I maintain, for me personally, my health is through what I eat. Food is like, that's the base for sure.
You're a salmon guy.
I like salmon, yeah, definitely.
eat a
We
lot of
order a
salmon.
lot of salmon, yeah. Good fats like that. I like just lots of veggies. We grow a lot of our own food here in Vermont. We got a greenhouse and little apple orchard. It's all pretty amateur, but it's fun to know where your food came from.
Sure.
And then if you can't grow it, try and support local food growers.
Absolutely.
And I think that, when you eat good food, you feel good, and then you can keep doing what you want to do. Yeah.
And you also are keeping your cardio and your bones and your joints all loose so that you can recover from injuries. You've had a few, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had a few injuries for sure. And I think what I've learned over the years is, like, yeah, you get injuries. Like, for instance, I had a bulged disc, and a guy, Dr. Keeler, he helped to get me back in shape. I've had a meniscus scope on my knee just a couple years ago. I've had 2 shoulder surgeries, Bankart surgeries. Those were gnarly. Those were like a year recovery each. But from all those injuries, I always learn something from those injuries. You can always take something from the injury or let the injury take something from you. And, like, I try and learn that, like, for instance, when I had the bulged disc, it was because my core was kind of weak. And you use your core in order to stabilize all those lower vertebrae,
That's right.
And so that's what Dr. Keeler was saying. It was like, you gotta tighten up that core in like a deep core sense. So that's like when I started to get into yoga. I went to Hawaii to get into some warmth,
Yes.
let the soft tissues heal, and I started doing Mysore yoga classes. And basically, it's like Ashtanga-based yoga where they really focus on deep core strength and, like, utilizing your bandhas, which are just Like, it's that muscle you use when you stop yourself from peeing, you know? It's
Yeah.
like that deep core. It's not just like washboard abs. And so just like, you know, trying to learn from all those injuries that, like, why did this injury happen? You know, very rarely it's just bad luck. It's because something was weak.
Most of the time it's because.
Yeah. Yeah. I've found with me personally. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of rehab, I'm guessing, after the knee also, right?
Yeah, the knee actually wasn't that bad. It was just a quick scope, and they didn't have to actually stitch anything together. It's more just taking stuff away.
Right.
That's being
Debridement.
abrasive. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was actually really quick. Like, I could walk right out of surgery, and within a month, I was good to go. Yeah.
So helicopters and snowmobiles, when you have them and when you don't,
Yeah.
what is that like? I mean,
Man,
what is
it's,
it? What is it like to get in a helicopter
Yeah.
with some crazy buffoons next to you,
Right.
and who's making the decision? Hey, we're going to go right up over there, and then we'll come up.
Yeah.
You're a master of reading the woods, reading the trees, reading the landscape, looking at a mountain face, and figuring out what's the most fun way to get down, but what's also the safest way to get
Safest,
down.
yeah, exactly.
Which, seeing you drop off the side of these cliffs, I probably wouldn't think it would be the safest way. But
Right.
you've mastered the art of reading the hills,
Yeah.
but also knowing where to have someone fly a helicopter.
Yeah, I guess with that, it's like it's all dictated by the athletes, by the riders in the heli. It's like they're never going to drop us off and say, you have to ride that. It's all, everyone's always, when we're in the heli, there's normally, you know, there's on a basic like B3 A-Star heli, which is what we fly in the mountains. Those have 4 seats in the back, and then there's 1 seat up front, and then the pilot. And so you kind of need to dictate your crew. Normally you have 2 athletes, 2 snowboarders, then a filmer and photographer. That's all the back. And then you've got your guide up front and your pilot. And so the filmer, photographer, guide, and pilot, they're constantly looking to the riders to say, where do you guys want to go? Let's do something rad. And it can get pretty stressful. It really can. I mean, it's all first world problems, you know, like that's how we like to call it. But it's like for every minute that those blades are turning, it's like money's going up in the blades. Those things are like, on average, they're about $3,000 an hour. And so, you know, it's like you need to make sure that you're making it count.
You have a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it? What was it like the first time you got into a helicopter with a snowboard strapped to your feet and you knew that you were about to do some pretty crazy stuff? What was running through your head? You must have had an amazing amount of adrenaline going.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it was just like I was really happy that I was finally where I wanted to be, you know? It's like I grew up on the East Coast riding hardpack and jumps and half pipe, and then and doing a lot of contests. And through the contests, that's kind of how I made a name for myself. And then from there, I wanted to get into the powder, into big mountains, and film video part segments, which helped to promote my sponsors, much like, you know, Warren Miller. But
Yeah.
we film with other production companies that are more snowboard specific than
Yeah.
Warren Miller. But I guess to answer your question, I was really happy that I was where I wanted to be, in a heli in the mountains.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer the freestyle backcountry or dropping out of a helicopter?
Well, I guess those are kind of two of the same thing, you know, like the helicopter will get you to the top in order to do freestyle backcountry. But as far as like what I prefer to do, I kind of lately, like maybe it's just because I'm getting older and I like to take a little more time. I like hiking, actually.
You like
Like,
to
don't
hike
get
it?
me wrong, like I love helis and snowmobiles and all that, but there is, you know, the fossil fuel expendage, and it's nice to be able to kind of scale back and listen to the mountains and take your time more. And so with that, there's like split boarding, you know. It's basically a snowboard that has a cut down the middle, and you can take it apart, and then it turns into skis, and you put skins on the bottom, which are kind of make it sticky, then you can hike up with the skis, which is your split board. You get to the top, you take your skins off, you put your skis together into the snowboard, and you can snowboard
That's
down.
crazy. I thought you were on snowshoes, but I did take note that those snowshoes weren't on your back when you were coming down, and I wondered about that.
Yeah, actually, well, if you were looking at the Japan stuff, oftentimes in Japan we are on snowshoes, and so that's snowshoes are a great way down there because it is so deep and steep that sometimes the split board doesn't work as well. So we do use snowshoes as well. Yeah.
Have you ever gotten into anything heli or just in the backcountry where you've questioned your skill, your confidence, where you've been scared, where you've said, I'm not so sure I should swing this?
Yeah, for sure. I have had to back out of things, and it sucks, when sometimes it takes a lot of effort in order to get the photographer and the filmer or two filmers in position. They spend a lot of energy getting ready for the shot, and then you just say, I'm not feeling it, guys. I got to pull the plug, Or the worst is when the heli drops you off. It's always easier for a helicopter to drop people off than it is to pick them up, and sometimes you got to get picked back up off from the top, and it's like, that's not good for the pilot or anything, and no one's psyched on that setup. But it's like you got to listen to your gut. And so, I have, especially when I was having shoulder problems, and I didn't want to get caught in the middle of a line and have my shoulder dislocate. That's what was happening, and have a dislocated shoulder in the middle of a line where, you can't go up and you don't feel confident to get down if your shoulder's dangling out of socket,
So what's a line? Is it basically, in layman's terms, you've drawn a line from where you are, point A to point B, and how you're generally going to get there? Is that a line?
Yeah, exactly. It's like looking at the mountain. You choose your starting point at the top, and your line is just what you want to paint on the way down to get from A at the top to B at the bottom. Yeah, that's your line.
So I have some questions for you. Some of them might be interesting, and I'm going to ask you about avalanches here in a second. I can't wait to ask you about it, but I have to just ask you, with snowboarding, what is a rail? What is a rail kid? Are you a rail kid? What is this all about?
That's a good question.
What is that? And I heard you say that might be your weakness.
Yeah. Well, let's see. How do I answer that? A rail kid? Normally they're kids, although they don't have to be kids. But normally the people who are hitting rails, who are riding rails on their snowboard, I got to try and put this in a layman's terms, is like a rail is, say, a handrail that you see in the city.
Okay.
And snowboarders will jump up onto the rail. They'll build a jump up, and slide the rail down. And so that's a lot of kids, younger kids like to do that, although there are older people that do it. Yeah, they do it on the slopes. Oftentimes, there's lots of rails set up at the resorts.
And you've done this?
I've done those, when I was younger.
Why is it your weakness? Why is it your weakness?
I just, for me personally, I enjoy being on snow, on my snowboard. Yeah, and I'll leave the rails to skateboarders or people walking on the sidewalk.
You're the winner of the 2013 Trans World Snowboarding Riders Poll Award for your docuseries Naturally, which is so badass. And I'm telling you, folks, if you have not seen this yet, just get on YouTube and or Google Jake Blauvelt, and you'll see it right there. It is a must-see. Watch the trailer, watch the film. It is incredible. Congratulations on that. That was a few years ago.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, but that was kind of around the time when people were starting to put out webisodes where
they were.
That we were kind of on the cutting edge of webisodes, whereas normally the procedure was to always just put out a video part, which was in a major production snowboard film, which would be premiered in the fall, right before, leading up to the winter. You save all your footage for that one video part. But I had help from my manager at the time, who was part of Friday Productions, and
Greg,
helped Greg
Miller.
Martin. Yeah, exactly.
Martin, yeah.
Yeah. Great guy. He's helped me a lot in my career, and he forecasted that people were gonna start diving into their phones a lot more and watching things online. And
He
it's
was
hard.
spot on.
He was spot on because that's all anyone does now.
Yeah.
It's like the old format's completely out the door, and it's like all web-based stuff now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jake Burton. What
Yeah.
was your reaction to that?
Such a legend, man, and it's too bad that he passed, but he touched so many people, like in the snowboard community, but then just up in Waterbury and Stowe and in Vermont in general. He's done so much. The Carpenter family's done so much for the community aside from snowboarding, and then the millions of people that he touched within snowboarding as well. It's crazy how many people's lives he influenced from just sliding down snow and having fun.
Yeah. 64, I think he was.
Was he? Yeah. He's like my dad's age. It's crazy. Yeah. I didn't know Jake super well, but if I knew him, like he would recognize me. Of course, I'd recognize him. He's the grandfather of snowboarding, the godfather of snowboarding, and it's tough. Yeah, it's like snowboarding isn't the same without him. He's so influential, and all I have is just mad respect and many thanks for him and his family. Yeah.
You were inspired by a few pros like Terrier, who's a Norwegian snowboarder,
Yeah.
and Nicholas Mueller, who's a Swiss guy.
Yeah.
Tell me about these dudes.
Yeah, these guys, they're amazing. They're just very naturally talented human beings. At whatever they do, they're really good at. You play ping pong with them, they're so good. They're incredible soccer players. They grew up playing soccer, which I did too. It's like I related to them a lot, and then I just really liked the way they carried themselves on a snowboard, and their style was amazing, and what they stood for. They helped teach me a lot. And actually, Terrier, I'm pretty sure he's going to make it for the bank slalom at Bolton this weekend. He's coming all the way from Norway just for the bank slalom. And then he's got a bunch of contacts here with Burton being based here. That's his main sponsor. But yeah, it's like if you get Terrier to come to your event, it's like you're stoked, man.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we're very pumped to have him, and I consider him a really good friend now, which is really cool. If you would have told me that when I was growing up, it's like, what? Like, yeah.
So I saw somewhere that you wanted to, at one point, your sponsors wanted you at one point. They wanted to capture you more in the air. And you wanted to get more doing what you're doing now.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. It's, I guess I like riding natural terrain. So just looking at the mountain and using the natural features that Mother Nature provides, and you just kind of use that as your canvas and paint your picture with your snowboard on the way down. Whereas a lot of people, which isn't the wrong way by any means, but a lot of people a lot of pro snowboarders like to go into the backcountry and they get their shovel out and they build what we call, here's another good lingo term,
here we go.
A cheese wedge. They like to build a cheese wedge jump, which is basically like they build a jump and it looks like a wedge of cheese, because the jump and on the back it's just straight cut off, so it looks like a wedge of cheese, and then you build that cheese wedge into a landing, and it can take like days to build these cheese wedge jumps.
Really?
And it's just like, man, I would rather be snowboarding than shoveling a jump, And so I think that's how I helped carve a little bit of a niche for myself within snowboarding, like Nicholas and Terrier, is riding natural terrain, which is kind of difficult to do because you never know you're the first person down,
Yes, right.
especially when it's powder, because you only get normally one chance in order to ride natural terrain. And then after your track's down it, the shot kind of looks like the film angle, and what you'd see on film it kind of looks like shit if there's already a track down it.
Right, of course.
So you get that one chance. Whereas with a cheese wedge, there's a bunch of tracks everywhere, and in the landing, you have so many landings. So it's just a different kind of backcountry snowboarding. It's not to say it's right or wrong, but it's what I enjoy doing is riding natural terrain.
I'm going to quote you in one of your videos, and I got to tell you, when I watched watched this, I was laughing out of control. It was hysterical for me. I just find it. Here it is. In one of your YouTube videos, you say, and I'm quoting here, slash on that pillow right above the runway. Let's sew a little ollie, land on the heels, come into this feature, and then backside slash it, and then air off into the out of the backside slash down into the flats.
Yeah.
The only slash I know is a guitarist for Guns N' Roses, man. What in the hell is that all about?
Oh, that is funny. Yeah, you hit it right on the head there. You nailed it,
what's
JD.
a banger?
Yeah. All right, to start, a banger's like when you get a really good shot. You know, it's like an A+ shot.
What's a shot?
A shot is like a trick that you get on film. That's a shot.
Okay.
You know, like someone films me doing a really cool trick. That's a shot.
Okay.
A banger. You know, like an A+ shot, a
Yeah.
really good one. That's a banger. And that's what we're looking for, and they're hard to come by. Yeah. But that like what you had just quoted me on was I was explaining my line, because oftentimes I'm mic'd up.
Yes.
And so I was explaining my line, the way I wanted to snowboard down the hill to the filmer, so that we're on the same page.
And Heikki Sorsa was with you
Yeah,
when you
Heikki's-
said that.
right, yeah,
You guys
yeah.
were in Japan.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you can talk like that, and
Yeah.
other
they
people
fully get
understand.
it. Oh yeah, fully. We're all on the same page.
Was
it's
it
like a full other language.
When you were back in Japan with Heikki Sorsa, who is legendary,
Right, yeah.
from Finland?
Yes, yeah.
Was it too soon after the back injury, the bulging disc? Dr. Kuhler was telling you 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah. I was worried that it was going to be too soon, but it wasn't actually. It's just, I think being in Japan, like Japan's known for their super deep, soft snow. And so maybe if I had gone right into hard pack riding, like on the resort where it's firm, you know, from the cat groomers and whatnot. But I was in chest deep powder, and so it was like you're snowboarding on a cloud, very low impact. And then the great thing about Japan is oftentimes there's always onsens, which are natural geothermal hot springs. And so like Japan does a really good job of utilizing their geothermal springs that they have. And so all of the hotels and little hostels you stay in, they all have their own onsens, which is basically Japanese for spa. And so you go from these really nice geothermal healing waters, hot tub style, soak in those for a bit. Then you go to cold tub. They've got, like, the Japanese are really good at spa life. And so it's like we go and ride all day and then come down, go between hot, cold, get the blood and all the lactic acid flushed out. And it really helped to get my confidence back up, and I felt really good, luckily.
You felt good.
Yeah.
It looked like after you had boarded with Heikki, that you felt very confident.
I was stoked, yeah, definitely.
That you got through that without another injury.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing with the bulge disc is, like, if you get on it too early and stress it too quickly, you just bulge it again, and then you're right back to square one, you know, and then it's another 8 weeks. At least.
Sure.
And so I was just glad that I was able to get my core strong and get limber, and it all worked out.
How do you back to reading the woods? How do you know when you're drawing your line, when you're drawing it from the standpoint of looking at the mountain and then going up there, and now you have the perspective of looking down, but you're not seeing everything.
Right.
How do you know where you're going? How do you keep your bearing? How do you make sure that you're not going to be surprised by shooting off the side of a cliff that you suddenly realize that you were too far to the right, and now your brain has got to be making decisions by the millisecond.
Yes and no, definitely. That's a really good question. Normally, on average, how we do it is we're at the bottom, we're looking at the face, the mountain, that's what we call it, is like the face of the mountain. We're trying to figure out a really good line to film and a good way to get down the mountain. I'll take photos on my phone of the face, on my camera or phone, normally my phone these days. And then when you get to the top, hopefully when you're at the top, ideally you can just see the whole run and know that, oh yeah, I just need to stay left of that tree and right of that tree, and I won't be off that cliff. But oftentimes all you can see, you normally have a convex roll at the top. It's called a convex roll. So the top of the mountain is convex in shape, and so all you can see is about 10 feet in front of you, and then you just see the valley bottom a couple thousand feet below. And it's one of the most unnerving feelings is blind rollovers. But to answer your question is, like, after you take that photo from the bottom, hopefully when you're at the top, you can at least see some kind of landmark from the top that you can line up with your photo on your phone and say, oh, I can just, from the top, I can just see the top of that tree, and that tree, I'm pretty sure, is this tree I'm looking at in my phone, and so I need to make sure to stay rider's left. And that's when you're coordinating on the walkie-talkie with the people below, is say, I stay rider's left or rider's right of that tree. And that rider's means from your perspective going down. Because if someone helping you coordinate from the bottom is saying, go to the left of that tree, but they mean looker's left, and you think they mean or rider's left, that's two different things. So you always got to make sure you're on the same page with who's helping you line up, whether it be the guide or the filmer. Say, is that rider's left of that tree, looker's left, looker's right? And that's, in a nutshell, how you know where you're going. But we never just go down and run blind. It's like, it's very calculated, and that's where I think a lot of people don't understand.
When you're flying through the woods, and you're dodging trees, you're hitting tricks, do you have your kids crawling around inside your head at all? Have they ever? Your wife?
Definitely.
Your kids?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I know for me, I'll get on the motorcycle, and we're all prone to having a little bit of an addiction to adrenaline. Some of us are.
Right.
And I'll get on my bike, and sometimes I'll just get on it just a little bit too much. And, man, that little girl just,
for sure,
she's right inside the head bouncing around. Does that ever happen to you?
Definitely. Yeah, lately, for sure. You know, I've only had kids for 2 years now, but it is even more calculated these days, because you got to make sure you come back. And I don't ever consider myself a stunt man. You know, I'm not risking it out there. I almost consider myself more of like an artist out there, where I'm trying to paint a picture. I'm not just trying to do the craziest thing out there. And so, yeah, I don't like doing anything where I feel like I could die. You know, I don't put myself in those situations. Snowboarding is about having fun, you know, and make sure that you can do it again and go and see your family. And actually, like, my daughter, you can kind of start to reason with her now. And when I was gone on this last trip out to British Columbia, my wife taught my daughter that Dada always come back. It's like,
those are strong words.
Yeah, man. It's like Dada definitely has to make sure to come back. And so it's like, I just try and make sure that, like, what I'm trying to show people on my snowboard is that snowboarding's fun.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. You can make it beautiful, and it's a form of expression. You know, it's not stuntman stuff for me, at least. Yeah, and that's how I keep safe.
But even so, one wrong move, and you're in a tree.
For sure.
It's
or
over.
There's certain things out there that you can try and keep under control, but like avalanches and whatnot.
Yeah, let's talk about avalanches.
Yeah.
You guys call them avies.
Avies, yeah, right.
So one of the biggest questions I have for you is, and I've always wondered this, and I've never been able to ask anyone, do you know you're being chased by an avalanche?
Right. Well, oftentimes I would say you do know that you're in an avi normally. A lot of times you hear like a whoomph, or those are the instabilities in the snowpack that collapse and make the avalanche. Oftentimes you hear it and then you see it. But sometimes you're riding so fast that you trigger the avalanche, but you manage to get in front of it, and then it's chasing you down the mountain. And sometimes you don't know because you're looking down, you're not looking up. At
You have
what's
no
chasing
time to
you.
look behind you.
And so a way to get around that is we've always got a backpack on. In our backpack, on our body, we always have a transceiver, which it helps.
Like a beacon?
A beacon, yeah,
Okay.
exactly, an avalanche beacon.
If you
And
get
so
buried.
if you get buried, everybody else can switch their transceivers into search mode and then hone in to within 0.10 of a meter.
Whoa.
And then but sometimes you can be upwards of 6 feet deep, and so the closest number you're going to get on your readout is 6 feet away. But anyway, we always have that on our body, and then in our backpack we have a shovel and a probe. And so those are our safety. Those are, if someone in our group is to get buried in an avalanche, we switch our transceiver into search mode. That helps hone us into the closest point we can get to them. And then you get your probe out, which is normally about a 12-foot long probe, and you start striking where you think they are under the snow until you hit them. And then you leave that probe, that's getting a probe strike. And then you leave that probe in on the strike, the person below, buried, and then you dig them out. And everyone gets their shovels out and starts digging as fast as you've ever dug before. And luckily, I've never had to do that, but a lot of people have in the backcountry, and that's how a lot of people go down. And then, yeah, if the avalanche is behind you, what we also have on our backpack is we have a radio with a trucker mic. And so it's a little microphone that is attached to your radio that everyone's on the same channel. And so if there is an avalanche that's behind you that you can't see, the safety person, normally the guide or someone else, the filmer, photographer in the crew, they can get on their microphone and say, Avi, 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 pull right, pull left, and you'll hear that on your trucker microphone, which is attached to the strap on your backpack.
You're giving me goosebumps, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, man, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Yeah.
And you've been caught up in one.
Yeah, I've been caught up in a couple. We call them slides. I've been in a good Avi before, yeah, and try not to bring it up that often, but yeah, those things do happen, yeah. And I wasn't fully buried, but I was up to my chest, getting ready to hold my breath and hoping. I was just screaming, help, help.
You were ready. You were ready to grab that last breath.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, a lot of people also they have ABS bags, which is basically like a deployable airbag that's in that CO2 cartridge, and it's basically a big airbag that inflates out of your backpack, and it is a big airbag that goes around your head. And in theory, it kind of keeps you afloat and on top of the avalanche.
Right.
But a lot of times they just help to protect you from trauma to your head.
Yeah.
Because
Getting
oftentimes
knocked
you
out.
just get raked wherever that snow and the avalanche is going, you're going with it. So if it's going off a cliff or into trees or whatever, that's how a lot of people actually go down, is not from getting buried and suffocating, it's from trauma, hitting trees, hitting rocks while you're getting raked down. And so if you can deploy, it's basically just like a parachute, a ripcord that's on your backpack, and you pull that inflates like that, like an airbag, and then, hopefully it keeps you afloat and protects your vitals, protects your head.
Now, what's this whole slough management
Right,
thing
slough
all about?
management. Slough is like a mini avalanche, and so with a lot of deep snow on super big, steep mountains, you start turning down and you kick off a little bit of snow. That snow grabs more snow, and it starts these little mini avalanches. And if you get caught downslope of that slough and that slough hits you, it can grab you, and it's not necessarily going to bury you, but it can pull you, just like an Avi, off from a cliff you don't want to go off, or into a tree or whatnot. So it's called slough management. You need to make sure that you're staying away from your slough, because inevitably on these big, steep mountain faces, you're going to kick slough off that's going to accumulate, and it's a little mini Avi that's with you the whole way that you need to be really aware of, because if you're not, it can grab you. If you're not looking, you don't manage your line correctly, and you get fall line of that slough, it'll grab you and just take you fall line wherever it's going.
And you see this. You've seen this.
Yeah, you've seen it. So normally, like slough management, the best way to go about it is you start on the top of the run, and if you work your way from the top of the run at the right to the bottom left, all your slough is going to be going down to the right side of you because you're working to the left the whole way, you know? But then if you take a crazy right turn and get back underneath that slough, that's when you're not managing your slough well, and that could grab you, you know? So if you're going to cut right, you better make sure that you're fast enough to stay away from that slough. Yeah, if I'm explaining it well enough.
I can visualize
yeah,
this. It's amazing.
Slough management. Yeah, it's big.
What do you manifest about on a daily basis? I know you've said that you do some yoga, and you do a lot of yoga.
Yeah.
And you're conditioning yourself always physically and mentally. But is there anything that you manifest about? Maybe daily or just often?
I guess I don't know how to answer that. I think mainly like through my snowboarding, I just want to inspire people and show them that just to have fun and have a good time, and always try and have fun in whatever you're doing. Try and find some pleasure in whatever you're doing. And so I guess, I don't know, to answer your question, it's just like I want to inspire people to have fun. And that's what I do on my snowboard. That's kind of what I consider my job description.
That's a great answer. It's a great answer. Snowboarders, do they have a bad rap?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had a worse rap before it was like an Olympic sport, and it was kind of cool, you know. It was good. It's like it's fun being the bad guys, or not the bad guys, but you know, those dudes. But you know, I think now it's like it is an Olympic sport, and if you want to be at the top of your game snowboarding, you got to like really dedicate and like probably work out, you know, and like train if you want to be the best. And that's just what the sport's come to, and it's all good, you know.
You ever taken a run down Tuckerman's?
Yes, yeah, one time I have. But actually, the guy who's helping, his name's Jenner, Richard. He's helping me put on the bank slalom through his company, Throwing Star, because I need help putting on this event. I can't do it all myself. I've got a lot of help from Bolton and a lot of help from Throwing Star. So anyway, Jenner was my coach back in the day at Mount Mansfield Snowboard Club. Him and Bud Keane, Bud Keane's like a legendary, he was Shaun White's Olympic coach. And anyway, Jenner and I was probably only 14, 15 years old. We hiked up Tuckerman's in the spring. I was awestruck because I had never really seen those big mountains. That's like for an East Coast standard, that's like as big as it gets, you know. You're in the Alpine, actually. I like an Alpine bowl, you know.
Right.
And we got to the lunch rocks, which is like where everyone kind of sits at the base of the head wall, and you can see everyone coming down the head wall, and you eat lunch in basically these rock tailings from when the glacier came through, I guess, thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. And we were in those rocks, and someone yelled, "Ice, ice!" And there was this huge chunk of ice the size of a VW bus tumbling down that had just broken off, tumbling down straight for us in the lunch rocks. And luckily, the guy yelled, "Ice." We got out of the way. It came tumbling into the lunch rocks and shattered into 1,000 different pieces and would have annihilated us and anybody else around us. And so it's like, that was my introduction to Tuckerman's Ravine. I was like, what the hell are we doing, dude? and then Jenner's all, let's get up there, man. You're safer at the top than at the bottom. It's like, holy shit, what am I doing?
Wow.
Man? But it was great.
What was the rundown like that?
I'd say actually the hike up was scarier than the way down, because the part that we were hiking up, it had kind of I think it was more of like a south aspect, so it was facing south, and so it got a lot of that melt freeze from the sun, and so it was really firm.
North side up, right?
North side up.
Yeah, you were heading up the right side.
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it was really firm, and with the ski boots, you could kind of chisel a little boot pack in that steep face, but with the snowboard boots, they just weren't firm enough, and I just couldn't get a good foothold, and I just really didn't feel good about it. I was gripped. But oftentimes that's the scariest part, is when you're at the top of a mountain billy goating around without your snowboard on.
Right. Wow.
And I've heard Jeremy Jones say it too. He's like legendary big mountain rider, rides up an AK all the time in Alaska. It's like until you get your board on and start flowing down, that's when you feel the most sketchy. But then once you get strapped in and you feel those edges that you're so confident on, that's when you start to feel good again.
Wow.
But it's like when you're not strapped in, you just overthink everything. Like, oh, can I do this? But then you strap in and you just start flowing and you're like, I can do this. I got this. But it's like oftentimes you psych yourself out. Yeah.
What a feeling that's got to be.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like definitely just a lot of confidence in yourself and like what you're capable of or what you think you're capable of. You're like, I think I can do this. Can I do it? Yeah, I got this. All right, let's do this.
Wow. I took a surfing lesson down in North Carolina, and I know that you're very good.
No, I'm not really.
Very good.
I try and surf, but I'm not very good. No,
Wow,
I aspire to be good, but yeah.
There's a quote here that says, a lot of snowboarders try to emulate skaters, but if anything, I try and emulate surfers because I don't hit rails or anything like that. I like riding powder, so I can relate more to surfing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And slashing, like what you're saying with slashes. A slash is basically just like a turn in the powder, and you end up throwing up all that snow in the air. That's a slash. And surfers do that same thing in the water on the waves, you know?
Do you wish you could surf more? If you had the opportunity to surf more, would you do it?
For sure. Definitely. Yeah. Easy question. Definitely I would. I would love to surf all the time, but I'm from Vermont, man. Yeah. I'm a mountain person. Like, I'm very comfortable in the mountains, in most mountains, but I'm not an ocean person by any means, man. I trip out when I'm out there. I'm just like, it's just very
in
foreign to me.
You're in somebody else's world.
Exactly, yeah. But then you see these, I have a couple guys who are pro surfers as friends, and they come into the mountains, and it's the same thing. It's like, dude, you're so comfortable in crazy surf out there, but then you come out here and you're scared to do this. It's like, are you kidding me, man?
Wow,
but
it's
just
something?
like what you're used to, you know, what you grow up doing, and time in the mountains or time in the ocean. You learn to be comfortable, and you learn what actually is a threat and what you don't have to worry about. You know,
how do you shut all of this off to be a dad, to be a husband, to focus in on these little kids and all of their constant needs? How do you shut the head off, man, and
that's
get
a
out
good
of snowboarding?
When I'm on trips, I've noticed actually, especially since having my kids, is when I go on a film trip, you know, a work trip, which is anywhere from like a week to 3 weeks. I try and never make it longer than 2 weeks now. And there's never like one-way tickets. There's always a return, you know. But I always try and make sure that, you know, I guess that I'm present with the kids, you know. I go hard when I'm working and fully immerse and work so much harder than I used to before I had kids. I go real hard now, sometimes too hard. But I take very few days off when we're on work trips. We go much harder now because I know that when I get home, it's like there is that return ticket. It's not like I stay on this trip inevitably for as long as it takes to get the job done. It's like there is an end date. I'm going to work hard up until that end date. I'm going to know that I gave it my all. And then when I get back to the family, it's just turn that off and be present with them. And that's what my wife always tries to drill into my head, and I'm learning to be present when you're with the kids, because they're only young for so long, and they're always changing. Even like my youngest, when I got back from this last trip, which was only 12 days. The youngest, she looked different when I got back.
They got these little growth spurts.
Crazy. It was a trip. And so I just try and go hard when I'm working, and then when you're done, turn it off and be present with the kids.
Has your wife ever tried to call you as you're tearing down a line?
Yeah, probably. I think she has, but actually, we actually always
Pick up a
turn.
gallon of milk on the way home.
I'll call you back, hon. No, we always turn our phones actually either off or. So we have to use them normally for our cameras because we're always taking pictures out there for safety reasons,
Sure.
like I was saying. But we turn it to airplane mode because our phones can mess with our transceivers, with our avalanche beacons. So you always make sure to turn it to airplane mode so I can't receive calls midline from my wife.
You're addicted to this sport, fair to say?
No doubt, yeah.
So when you're in the car with your wife and your kids, and the kids are singing Baby Shark, and you're headed to the grocery store or what have you, does your wife, does she ever just, have you ever seen the roll of the eyes when you start talking about snowboarding or your phone rings and it's one of your compadres and they want to talk about snowboarding and she's just sick of hearing about snowboarding?
Yes, definitely, especially like with this event coming up. I've just been so focused on making sure that like, dude, people are actually going to come to this bank slalom now. It's happening. People are counting on us. Like, and so there's just, I've never been coordinating so much. I'm always on the phone or texting or emailing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
right.
Yeah.
You have to.
You kind of, yeah. And so it's crunch time. Like this is definitely crunch time. And my wife is so over it. But at the same time, she's so supportive. And like, I wouldn't be where I'm at without her. She's an incredible snowboarder herself. She used to work up in Alaska. She was tail guiding, which is basically like a guide learning to be a lead guide in order to lead groups out in the backcountry. But yeah, she was training to be a guide up in Alaska.
Wow.
She's gnarly. Yeah, she's
she
awesome.
knows.
She knows what's up. Yes, she gets it. She fully gets it. But it's like, yeah, I know. And then with social media and all that too, like when I first started snowboarding, it was always the brands that promoted you. All you had to do was focus on snowboarding.
Right.
And now the brands expect you to promote yourself and them and snowboard at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's the age we live in, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
I find it really tough because I like to fully focus when I'm out there, and it's hard to be documenting everything. It's like that's what we pay these filmers and photographers to do, to document. And I want to focus on my line and make sure I'm staying safe and dialed, you know. But I gotta be freaking Instagramming and making sure I'm getting all my own shots too. And it's like, dude, you're just overloaded with everything. And I'm just not a good promoter of myself, but I'm learning, and it takes a lot of time. We try not to be on our phones in front of the kids too, you know. And it's like, how do you do that these days?
Tell you right now, brother, that's going to get harder and harder and harder.
I know. It's like, when do you let them have a cell phone?
And
because
then wait till they grab your phone and start swiping.
oh, dude, she already knows. Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
We live in a crazy time.
But listen, man, Adidas, the North Face, Darn Tough Socks, Ride snowboards, and Smith Optics. I mean, you've done them very well.
Yeah, thanks.
And they love you, and you're doing an outstanding job.
Thanks, man.
Do you ever see, final question here, do you ever see yourself, you know, we're all getting older, man, and you got kids.
Right.
I mean, you know, when I'm down on the floor playing with Lily, I struggle to get back up. I mean, I'm like, it takes me 15 minutes to get back up with my feet up. Just getting out of the car.
Yeah.
Is that in the cards for you someday, you think?
Man, I know. It's funny. It's like this one guy I always used to see in town. He's an older guy, and he wasn't in very good shape. His body was starting to fail him. He was a big-time skier back in the day. He always used to tell me, this is like 10 years ago when I was just starting my career, he's all saying, "You're going to be so screwed when you're my age, man.
Yeah.
You better count your blessings now." It's like, dude, I work hard to keep my body in tune, and I do take the bails, but I work hard to be able to bounce back from those bails. I eat well, try and keep everything like holistic and in check. And I mean, I'm sure I don't know. I just hope that I take care of myself well enough now to where hopefully I can keep doing it. You know, maybe not at like top level, but I think that, you know, if you just put in the time and effort for body maintenance, hopefully I can keep doing this with my kids, you know, when they're my age. And that's the goal, at least. And
What if one of the kids says to you, Dad, snowboarding sucks?
I know my wife and I talk about that all the time.
What are you going to do?
Dude, I don't know, man. As long as the girls are happy,
I want to
could
be a
care less.
ballerina.
Yeah, it's like if being a ballerina makes you happy, do it. You know, it's like I'm not gonna live vicariously through. I mean, I will, but like at the same time, I just want them to be stoked and happy. Yeah.
Good luck with everything you're doing, man.
Thanks.
This is Jake Blauvelt. His docuseries is called Naturally. Again, it's on Vudu, Amazon Prime, Google Play Movies and TV. It is everywhere on YouTube. And I'm telling you what, even if you're not a snowboarder, even if you're not a skier, you ought to run up to Bolton on Saturday, meet Jake, grab an autograph, see this man in action. Blauvelt's Banks, Saturday, 10 a.m.
Yeah, 10 a.m. is when we're going to start the race.
The
Registration is before, starting at 8. And we'll also open to the general public. We'll have a bunch of raffle items, which will 100% of the proceeds from the raffle will be going to protect our winters. And so we got like snowboards, boots, goggles, a bunch of other products, stuff from Darn Tough socks to raffle off. All going to a great cause, open to the public. Come on up.
And sneak a peek of Terrier, too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be
legend.
So awesome.
Yeah.
10 o'clock, doesn't matter what the weather's going to be doing because it's going to be, you guys are going to be ripping it
We're
up.
doing it regardless, man.
No matter
it's going to be great. Yeah.
Jake Blauvelt, my guest, that I am so, so honored. I'm just awestruck to have you in here, brother. It has been amazing to sit down with you and chat with you. Awesome. My sponsors, of course, are Project Independence, Gothiers, Quality Grounds and Maintenance. A bunch of great people. Wright Electric, Chris Wright. I can't thank him enough for everything he's done for me. Tony Campos, Bubakar, Billy, my producer, Billy Waite, great guy. We want to thank you for subscribing. Make sure to check out more of Aired Out. We got some great shows coming up. And we're going to be talking about A Night to Shine this coming Wednesday, which I am so much looking forward to, February 7th, right here in the Granite City. That's going to do it for now. Thank you again, Jake Blauvelt. Good luck, man. We're going to be following you and watching you very carefully with all of your endeavors and adventures, and God bless you.
Thanks so much, JD. It was great, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Have a great rest of your night. Be safe. We'll catch you Wednesday night. This is Aired Out.